Oops, wrong camera. Just a second, sorry. It's a wrong camera. Settings. I started a little bit early because I want to make sure that everything is set up properly, and apparently not everything. Give me a second, please, sorry. Where's my camera? Hello? Aha, now it should be better. Now it should be better. No, it's not. Give me another second, sorry. Settings. Not good connectivity. Never had a problem with this camera. Please tell me if you can hear me, if you can see me. It might be wrong camera. It might be wrong camera, but good. At least you can hear me, right? Give me another second. I will try to. Maybe I should just reload the page. Let me try. All right, now it's the right camera. Thanks God. And you can hear me, and you can see me. Excellent. Okay, we are starting 1 minute later, but thanks God we have the right camera and the right microphone, so everything should work now. Very welcome to my webinar. I'm so happy to see you here because something I'm going to present today is very special for me. I became interested in the Vedic astrology, also known as Jyotish, probably in the beginning of the 1990s. But there was a lack of information there. There were no books. I lived in Russia at that time. We had just one little book, and it just got me excited, but didn't give me much information. And over the years, while practicing quite actively Western astrology, I kept thinking I need to learn Jyotish as well. And a number of times I tried to approach it using different books. There are some excellent books, but a book isn't the same as having a teacher. And probably around 7 years ago, I decided that I should find a teacher. I should learn Jyotish properly. And I found this course by Roland Deleuve, a teacher of Vedic astrology from the Netherlands, who owns Dirach Academy International, a school which teaches different kinds of astrology, but primarily Vedic astrology. And I took his course, and his course consists of the 4 modules. The preparatory, the introductory module, which prepares people to deal with the Vedic chart. But there are 4 core modules. On the completion of each of these 4 core modules, you get a certificate. And after all the 4 modules are completed, you get a diploma in the advanced Vedic studies. So when I just started the course and I couldn't stop, I was doing the course on the trains, after coming home in the evening, over the weekends. I couldn't stop until I completed all the 4 modules. And since then, Jyotish gave me so many different discoveries. One of the most simple ones, but at the same time of the most important ones, was about Atmakaraka, the ruler of the soul. Some of you will know about Atmakaraka from my previous presentations and webinars and newsletters maybe. But in this first core module, you will already be working with Atmakaraka. it will be your homework in one of the lessons to find out your Atmakaraka, to interpret your Atmakaraka. But let me return to my slides, because I can be speaking for quite a while. Let's return to the content of this presentation. So why Vedic astrology? Why I'm so excited about it? First of all, it's a live tradition of astrology, which comes to us through thousands of years. It's very different in this respect from the Western astrology, because Western astrology died out twice. First, it was the Dark Ages after the fall of Roman Empire, and second time it was the time when rationalism and materialism became prevalent in Europe and in the world in the 16th, 17th probably century. And it was restored in the 20th century, but in a very psychologized form. It wasn't the same astrology anymore. But there are different schools, there are different possibilities within Western astrology. It can be quite powerful. But with the Indian astrology, with Jyotish, with Vedic astrology, we have the tradition which wasn't interrupted for the thousands of years. One of the reasons why I found it difficult to learn Jyotish before I found the teacher is that I tried to, using the books, I tried to approach it as if it was just another approach to Western astrology, just slightly different charts, just slightly different methods. In reality, Jyotish is huge. It's much bigger. I used to compare if Western astrology is a lake, then Jyotish is an ocean. And that's something I come to realize after this Dirac Academy course. It has multiplicity of methods and approaches, and it has several different astrologies within it. Different astrologies. Substantially different. And this is both good news and bad news. It's good news because we have plenty of choice. It can be bad news because how do we navigate this ocean of methods and approaches? The thing is, we can try and test and see what works for us, and choose something which resonates with us the most, and we can enrich our life and our understanding of astrology enormously by doing that. And also, Jyotish presents an alternative view of reality. Sometimes it can be different. It can be difficult for some people to understand that how can we either the tropical zodiac is right or the sidereal zodiac is right. They can't be both right, because in one zodiac you can have your sun in Aries, but in the other zodiac it will be in Pisces. It can't be right, can it? But it can, because our reality is not just three-dimensional picture. It's a holographic reality, which was proven by physics. And using different zodiacs, using different approaches, we can just shift it. We can look at it differently and see just another dimension of the same reality. And we know a lot more as a result of that. We understand a lot more. So Vedic astrology is a very enriching, very valuable kind of knowledge for us. Why exactly this course? Why I'm offering this course to you? When I started my astrology school earlier this year, I knew I will want Jyotish in it, but I didn't feel like I have enough expertise in Jyotish, enough experience to present you a course of my own. But thankfully, Roland Deleuve was friendly enough so that we cooperated together. He donated this course, the material of this course, his experience. We communicated a lot while I was preparing this course to present it to you. And I'm my effort is to put this course on the new platform, because originally this was a correspondence course. So the teacher would send you letters or emails containing the lessons of the course. You would email your homework back, but the communication was there, but it was a little bit limited to just, like duplex communication. One message goes there, the second message goes back. I'm trying to put it onto the new platform to enrich it, but I will tell you a little bit more about that. Just let's concentrate on the content of the course at this point. What's valuable about exactly this approach is that it has the emphasis on practice. And not only just practice, it's concentrated on working with your chart. I think this is very, very important, because when you're reading a book, you see someone else's chart is discussed, and you think, how it will work with my chart? And sometimes it's easy to figure out, sometimes it's not. But here, we will be working with your exactly chart. You will be doing the exercises using your own chart, and I will give you the feedback. I will check whether your conclusions are right or not. I will not do the interpretation instead of you, but I will be standing next to you, basically, and we'll be working together on your chart. And interactive format is something I'm beginning to add. What is meant by that? I've put this course on the platform which I used for my other courses, where I can easily add videos, I can add other materials to the lessons, and each lesson is associated with a mini forum where you can easily ask questions or leave comments and see maybe some other students were already asking this, and you can have a feedback. And also, I already tried this approach with the introductory course, about which I will tell you a little bit later. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to enrich this course over time. Because when I see that people have a problem with something, with some particular idea, I just create a simple webinar. I can create it with a very short notice, and we can get together and discuss the problem. And I can show different, for example, with this introductory course, I wanted to show two different chart formats, the South Indian chart and the North Indian chart, and to compare them and to see that they're basically the same. They're just different in two respects. And I think it worked, because after conducting the webinar, I put the recording with the lesson, and I think it already enriched the course enormously. So basically, what I'm offering you is that working on this course will be working together, because I will see if there is some difficulty, will enhance the course to make it easier to understand, to make it easier to grasp if there are any difficult concepts. And over time, I'm planning to create video introductions to each of the lessons, just giving you the initial direction, what to pay most attention to, what should be just taken easy, and this sort of thing. To whom this course is addressed? Well, you're supposed to be a kind of already knowledgeable person about the natal chart. If you know what the natal chart is, houses, planets, signs, Western chart, the ascendant, you're fine. You have enough knowledge to do this course. Because, you know what, when it explains, for example, how to create your Vedic natal chart, it tells you take your Western chart and just subtract Ayanamsha and do this, do that. So it's already expected that you know the natal chart. But I have a few newcomers already on this course. And for them was a special introductory course created, which I created, which I prepared for you as well. It's available. And in that course, introductory course, I do not assume any knowledge of astrology from you, because if you don't know something, I will teach you that. And it consists of 6 or maybe 7 now, simple lessons showing what the chart is, what are the main elements, and introducing the Vedic format of the chart. And showing you, because you will already get your Vedic chart, and you will see where the new positions of your planets are. And some people are not comfortable with that. And basically, the aim of that introductory course to make people comfortable with their Vedic chart, and not only with the Western natal chart. So one other element which might be important to take this course, you should be a little bit relaxed about the number of Sanskrit terms in this course, because there are elements which I could translate into English, but they're not really English, like three-corner houses. They're a trigon, you know, it reminds you some English words, but it's still the term from Jyotish. And I think it's important to retain these terms. There are quite a few of them, I will be honest with you. But just take them easy. Take them like you might want to learn Spanish, a little bit of Spanish. It's like that. It's Sanskrit only. And I hope they're not too difficult, but some people, for example, my teacher of astrology, Avgustina Semenko, when in the 1990s I tried to tell her a little bit about Jyotish, she told me, oh, no, thank you. I just can't bear those Indian words like Ayanamsha. No, I can't. I would prefer some German. German was her first language. So I hope you don't mind learning a little bit of Sanskrit words, not Sanskrit itself, just a few terms. So now I'm going to tell you about just a little bit about each and every of the lessons of this course, so that you had an idea of what you will find inside of the lessons. The very first lesson is the introduction. Well, the typical introductory lesson, which will tell you that what you will learn to understand your stronger and weaker sides, and to use your stronger sides better, and to use your weaker sides better as well. You will be aware of the possibilities that emerge in your life during certain periods, because the forecasting system of the Vedic astrology is quite specific. It splits time into different periods of different lengths and assigns certain planets to those periods. And we will learn during this first course how to understand what planets represent in our lives, what positive qualities they bring, what potential problems then they bring. We'll know the planets in a very rich and interesting way. One peculiar thing about Jyotish is you might think, oh, it should be very simple. They only use like 7 planets plus 2 shadow planets, Rahu and Ketu, the lunar nodes. And the chart looks like simple table. There is no complexity which you can see in the Western astrological chart. No beautiful aspects, different systems of houses. Vedic charts look very simple. And they normally don't use Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, no black moon, no Chiron, nothing. Just the standard classical stuff. But they have, and also some people think, oh, Jyotish, it's black and white, good or bad. It's totally not like that. It's so many shadows and nuances. I can compare this with a good movie. In the movie, there are not 1,000 of actors, right? There are maybe several main actors, but the relationships between them can be so intricate, so rich, so interesting. The same thing is in Jyotish. We have only 9 planets, but you will never get bored with them. Right. The third possibility Jyotish will give you an opportunity to individually choose different remedies which will improve your life, but I will return to this in a corresponding lesson. And even we'll learn some Ayurveda a little bit. You can't study Ayurveda in one lesson, of course, it's impossible. But what's interesting about this course, it introduces many different topics, but not superficially. Basically, it gives you the topic and the necessary steps to try and start working with it. So you can apply it to your chart and see some results. And that's the beauty of this course, because it gives you many opportunities. And in each case, it gives you those opportunities in a practical, interesting way. And you can see how it works for you. Same with Ayurveda. We'll deal a little bit. You can't do a lot in one lesson, but you will do enough to start understanding how it works. But I will return to this in another lesson again. Oops, I pressed the wrong button. No? No, yeah, that's sorry, yes. That's the second lesson, why Vedic Astrology. I just spoke about this, but anyway, the roots of Vedic Astrology are in Vedas. You can actually find in Vedas, which are thousands and thousands years old. Nobody knows how old they are. The rules of astrology. Our materialistic scientists discovered that, for example, the main works of astrology were written perhaps in the 5th or 6th century after Christ, of our era. And so they say this is when Vedic astrology emerged. But that's not so. The thing is that the knowledge, like Vedas, like Vedic astrology, were transferred from father to son for who knows how many centuries. So the origins of astrology, of Vedic astrology, are lost in our past. Nobody knows when it all started. But measure by the date of some particular manuscript, it's not correct. It's when it was recorded ultimately. Normally, not at the very early stage of the existence of this knowledge. So in the second lesson, we'll be dealing with Vedic astrology having its roots in the Vedas. It's very tightly integrated into the Indian society. One interesting example is that there is such a term, Ayanamsha, which is a difference between the tropical and the sidereal zodiac. We'll be dealing with it in the second lesson already. So there are a few different versions of Ayanamsha. Which of them we should use? And imagine Indian government came to a decision that the main Ayanamsha used by astrologers should be Lahiri, government of India. That's quite amazing. Imagine American or British government coming for a meeting to discuss something like which system of houses we should be using or something like that. It's totally impossible. And we'll be creating the Vedic chart in the second lesson, taking your Western chart as a basis and creating a Vedic chart. Signs and planets. Here we are starting to learn the alphabet. First, the signs and their classification. You won't find, if you already know Western astrology, which you probably do, you won't find a lot of new information about the signs of the zodiac and their classification. It's just a brief, like an overhaul of the basic knowledge of the signs. They're quite the same in Vedic astrology. Then we will learn the planets, the symbolism of the planets. And here you will find some surprises. Not with every planet, but with some planets you will be quite surprised with what they mean in Vedic astrology. Well, for example, plus to its normal significations, Jupiter is connected to children, and Jupiter also represents the spouse in a woman's chart. And there are some, Mars represents brothers and sisters, and there are some differences, but hey, we're looking at the same reality from a different angle. You should expect some differences in perception. Then we'll discuss what are benefics and what are malefics. Every planet in Jyotish is either a benefic or a malefic, but there are certain ifs. For example, well, Jupiter is clearly a benefic, Venus is clearly a benefic, Saturn and Mars are malefics, of course. The Sun is a malefic. We'll discuss that. The Moon, mostly a benefic, but sometimes it can be a malefic, and Mercury is the same. So there are some rules which we are going to learn. The dignities of the planets, they're pretty much the same as in the Western astrology, except that in Vedic astrology, exaltation is considered the main dignity of a planet, and its own sign, when the planet is in its own sign, it's also important, but it's the second. In fact, it's the third in significance. On the second place is so-called Mula Trikona sign, which is basically one of the houses. The planet is in one of its houses, but again, there is a rule for that which we'll learn. The fourth lesson is about functioning of planets, and here we come to some concept which doesn't exist in the Western astrology and which enriches Jyotish. Planets can be friends and enemies. For example, Mercury, Venus, and Saturn are all friends in between themselves, but they can be enemies for some other planets. It's like this. There are certain rules about this, and some information we just need to remember. And also, what's interesting, friends can be temporary or permanent. Permanent means, like I told you, Mercury, Venus, and Saturn, they're always friends, they're permanent friends. But in some horoscopes, the distribution of houses can be such that some planets, they were not friends, but they can become friends. Natural enemies, permanent enemies, can become temporary friends. And permanent friends can become temporary enemies. It's like in human life, you know. It's a bit complex, but this is how it is. And this is how Jyotish approaches it. It's very interesting. It enriches your understanding quite enormously. We'll also discuss the speed of planets. Basically, the slower the planet moves, the stronger its influence in the chart. And in this respect, we'll also mention the retrograde motion of planets. That's lesson 4. Lesson 5 is about the houses, the meanings of the houses. Again, you will find some surprises here, but again, we're looking from a different angle, from a different perspective. For example, the second houses in the Western astrology, it's dealing with the money, right? But in Vedic astrology, second house is related to mouth, and whatever comes into our body through the mouth or out of it, like speaking, communication, therefore, is the matter of the second house. So there is some shifts between the second and the third house. And the third house represents energy. There are some differences, but you will learn them. They're quite well defined. Classification of the houses, cardinal houses, angular, they're named a little bit differently. This is very interesting. House indicators. We'll be learning 2 systems of indicators. We'll learn properly during this course just one. There are 2 main kinds of, actually there are 3, but 2 main schools of Jyotish. One of them is the mainstream, what every Jyotishi, every Vedic astrologer uses and learns. This is the system of Maharishi Parashara, who is, well, like probably the main authority in Jyotish. And this system gives us some natural, pretty much logical house indicators. And then there is a system of Jaimini, which represents Jaimini astrology, Jaimini Jyotish, which is very different, very advanced. They say Jaimini was the disciple of Parashara, and actually what Jaimini created was just further development of the ideas of Parashara. But still, the astrology is so different that some people argue that it's a totally different system. Here in this course, we'll only touch a little bit Jaimini astrology. And what we'll learn here is mostly Atmakaraka, which I mentioned, the ruler of the soul. It comes from Jaimini astrology, and it's really important and very interesting. So that's lesson 5. Lesson 6, house lords. In the Western astrology, depending on which school of astrology you belong to, in some more traditional schools, we use the rulership of the houses. We can say that position of the planet in the house is a fact, but the houses which this planet rules is where this fact comes from. But in Vedic astrology, the emphasis is different. They say that the house which the planetary rules is very, very important. Where it is located is also important, but the most important thing of which house this planet is lord of. Well, which house it rules, basically. So, for example, let's say Jupiter is a benefic planet, right? But let's suppose it rules the 8th house, which is a difficult house. And then the role of Jupiter in this chart will be immediately not that straightforward, because this benefic planet will be bringing into the life of the chart owner some problems. So it will be a temporary malefic. It's benefic, but it's a temporary malefic in this particular chart. It's not the worst of malefics, but still. And the same with Saturn. Say the Saturn rules the 9th house in some chart, and the 9th house is considered to be probably the best of the houses. And then Saturn becomes a temporary benefic, although naturally or permanently it's malefic. And here we have another nuances. More nuances, Maraka houses. Houses like the 2nd and the 7th. They're usually considered to be quite good. The 2nd is the money, the 7th is the partners, but they have some nuances, which, for example, the 7th house is the 12th from the 8th, and the 8th is the length of life. So I won't I won't overload you with information today, but we discussed these nuances. Some houses can introduce potential problems. And the ascendant is very important, because in Vedic astrology, everything is basically calculated from the ascendant. The ascendant defines how all the signs, because in Vedic astrology, the system of houses is one sign, one house. So the sign is the complete house. No matter where in the sign the planet is, it will belong to just one house. Like if the ascendant falls in the 1st degree of some sign of, let's say, Libra, the whole Libra becomes the 1st house. Or if the ascendant falls in the 29th degree of Libra, the whole Libra will be again the 1st house. And so, if the ascendant goes into a different sign, the whole system of houses shifts, and therefore the system of temporary malefics and benefics shifts completely, and planets start playing different roles in the chart. Okay, we'll return to this a little bit later in a later lesson, but it's very important to know the ascendant in the Vedic chart. Planets and houses. Here we are going to dive into a little bit of Sanskrit, like Dusthana houses, Kendra. And Dusthana houses are basically the 6th, the 8th, and the 12th, the most difficult houses of the chart. They're called Dusthana houses. Some a little, just the term. And Kendra houses are angular houses, the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, and the 10th. And Trikona houses are the trigon, the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th. it's just easy to call them with one word rather than keep repeating the first, the fourth, and so on. And Upachaya houses is a very interesting concept in Jyotish, because normally you wouldn't want to have a malefic planet anywhere. You don't want to have malefics at all. But there are certain houses in the chart which are good for malefics, to have malefics in them. Because it is said, if you have a malefic in the 6th or in the 10th, say, houses, or in the 11th, then it will work well for you. It will be good for you. It won't be good for the people related to those houses, but it will be good for you. For example, because malefics represent a raw energy, and if it's put into a certain house, it just works for you very well, because in the 6th house where you work physically, right, in the 10th house where you're fighting to get to some higher position, they work for you. And the older you are, the better they work. But okay, let's I don't want to give you the whole course in just an hour and a half. It takes a little bit longer. Aspects. It's lesson 8. The conjunction. Conjunction is very interesting. It's not actually an aspect in Jyotish. It's a relationship between planets. And two planets form a conjunction if they're within the same sign, no matter where in the sign. Say one planet in 1 degree of Aries, the other planet in the 28 degree of Aries, they are in conjunction because they are in the same sign. It is said that the closer they are to each other, the stronger this conjunction. But still, whenever they are in conjunction. And we'll learn 2 systems of aspects. One of them, the main one, again, Parashara's system. And it's quite different. I think the most important way how it's different is that the planets aspect not the other planet. They aspect the houses. They aspect the signs. So even if you don't have anything in that house, a planet can aspect it and influence the matters of that house. For example, if you have a planet, say, in the 5th house, each planet aspects the house which is directly opposite. For example, if you have a planet in the 5th house, it will always aspect the 11th house. And it's not in a position. The nature of the aspect depends on the nature of the planet, but I'm overloading you again. There are these aspects are substantially different from what we are used to in Western astrology. And for example, if the planet aspects its own sign, it's very good for that sign. It might be not good for the planet, but again, might be too much information for today. Tajika aspects, it's different. Alternative versions, Tajika aspects, they're very similar to the Western aspects. Why they're similar? They were brought to India by the Arabs. The same Arabs which kept the knowledge of astrology during the Dark Ages and brought it back to Europe in the Middle Ages. They also brought that variety astrology, which is Western in many ways, to India, to those areas which they occupied at some point in history. Tajika word is very interesting because there is a country right to the north of India which is called Tajikistan, and people who live there are called Tajiks. And I think Tajika comes because Arabs came from the north, and Indians knew that Tajiks live there, and Arabs might look like Tajiks, so maybe that's where this term Tajika aspects came. And this is the 3rd mainstream variety of Vedic astrology. In Vedic astrology, we have Parashara astrology, we have Jaimini astrology, and this 3rd kind of astrology which came from Arabs and similar to the Western astrology, which is Tajika astrology. So you can see there are different astrologies in Jyotish. We will just touch the Tajika aspects here. We won't go deep into that. There is a lesson on Tajika astrology in a later module in this course. not in this particular course I am offering today. Yogas is again something very different. I don't think something similar exists in Western astrology, at least, well, maybe a little bit, some concepts. The idea of yogas is that you can find in a chart some particular meaningful configuration or combination of factors, and that will mean for you something. As an example, there are 5 yogas which are called Pancha Mahapurusha yogas. Pancha means 5, Maha means big, Purusha means soul. 5 signs of a great soul, let's say. So they're quite simple. If a planet is in the sign of its exaltation and at the same time in a Kendra house, in an angular house, that's a Pancha Mahapurusha yoga, because there are 5 planets, disregarding Rahu and Ketu, disregarding the Sun and the Moon. There are only 5: Mars, Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, what I forgot, Mercury, of course. And these 5 planets can be in exaltation and in a Kendra house, and then they say something very distinctive about the person. For example, the Mars person will be very arrogant, the victor, maybe aggressive, but it will be a very strong Mars, and the person will be distinguished like the owner of this Mars. The same can be said about Saturn or Mercury. If Mercury is in the Pancha Mahapurusha yoga, it's a very, very strong Mercury, which will play a very important role in the person's life. Then there are like Parivartana yogas. Parivartanas, they are similar to mutual reception, except that in Jyotish, we consider which houses those planets rule. Maybe it's a Dusthana house and so on and so on. Maybe it's a beneficial house. A little bit more complex, but similar to mutual reception in the Western astrology. Sisa yogas, it's like the surrounding of the planet or of the house. If some house or some planet has 2 benefics on both sides of it, that's good for this planet or for this house. If there are malefics, it's not good. And there are certain more in-depth interpretations. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of these yogas. I have a piece of software which is called Parashara's Light, and it has in it 1,001 yogas, and it analyzes the chart and gives you dozens of them. Maybe you don't need that many. I think the yogas presented in this course is what you need to start with. But also, Roland recommends a book which is very good, which gives more knowledge of yogas if you want that knowledge, if you think you can handle it. That's a very important chapter, or lesson 10. This is where the predictive astrology starts. Basically, we have 3 types of periods: Mahadashas, Bhukti Dashas, and Antara Dashas. They are on different levels. First, the longest are Mahadashas, which are split into Bhukti, and then into small Antara Dashas, which could be as 1 month long or a few months long. And basically, I can tell you right now how to interpret dashas. Just see which planet rules by it, and then you know where it's planet, in which sign, in which house, which houses it rules, which aspects it receives from the other planets. But you need to take all that into account, and that will tell you the whole story about that period. And that's a Mahadasha. You just have 1 ruler. And if you go 1 level deeper, a Bhukti Dasha, then you have to consider 2 planets, their positions in the chart, which houses they rule, which aspects they receive, and so on and so on. So we'll approach this very systematically, step by step, and we'll start learning how to interpret, how to make predictions in Vedic astrology by doing the dashas. This is the main predictive method of the Vedic astrology. We'll be working with it in lesson 10. Sorry. One of the methods from lesson 10 is maturing of the planets. And now I'm going you to quickly demonstrate this method because it's very compact, very simple, but at the same time it's very interesting. The idea is that when each planet becomes mature at a certain age. And when this planet becomes mature, it becomes very bright, very strong, very noticeable in the horoscope. And that planet is well, it has a natural meaning, like Venus means love, the sun means, authority or father figure and so on. But also, each planet is situated in a certain house in the horoscope and rules certain houses. So that gives you already a story. And that story is activated when the planet becomes mature. And now what I suggest, just take this table and see what happened in your life when you were, for example, 21 years old. That's when your son reached maturity. In my case, when I was 21 years old, I got married. And it's interesting because the sun is in my chart is directly opposite the moon. And if you count from the moon, which we'll do in Jyotish quite often, we can calculate houses from the moon. The sun will be in the seventh chart, in the seventh house of partners. So that's quite appropriate that I got married there. And it's interesting that in Jyotish, counting houses from the moon is as normal thing as counting houses from the ascendant. It's not unusual at all. And when I was teaching I'm still teaching, but when I was more actively teaching the course of popular astrological forecasting, I told people, let's calculate houses from the sun, because that's how you do it in popular forecasting. And people were uncomfortable, like, we should calculate from the ascendant. And I told them, when we'll come to Vedic astrology, you'll see that you can calculate houses from many different points. and well, not from the sun in Jyotish, but from the moon easily. So 21, 47, Ketu is a very interesting shadow planet. It very often, like other malefics as well, it shows like a certain technical ability. And I've got my Mercury in conjunction with Ketu. That's why I'm a programmer in my life. And when I was 47 years old, I started programming for the smartphones, which are, the latest platform, which really look like magic, because you can make a program, it will work on your phone. It was an exciting period for me. But again, my Ketu became mature and brought me this smartphone programming. And I can tell you a lot about these years. 41 year Rahu, when I moved to Cyprus, and I was just trying everything I could. I was flying planes, I was scuba diving. It's Rahu. It's just, Rahu wants everything. It's very interesting. Depending on where it is in your chart, you can see. My Ketu, for example, is in the 5th chart. That's why I like programming so much. And that was an exciting period when it became mature in my life. So have a look at this table. Try to see what happened in your life when your planets got mature. Very simple approach. This is a beautiful side of Jyotish. Sometimes it's very sophisticated, but sometimes it just gives you a gift, and it's so simple, and it's just so revealing sometimes. Very interesting. Harmonic horoscopes. Here Roland decided to translate harmonic. It's called Varga charts normally, but he decided to translate it to explain it by saying harmonic charts, because they're very similar technically. Technically, they're similar to harmonic charts done in certain areas of Western astrology. It's not a mainstream Western astrology, right? But some Western astrologers do use harmonics quite productively. But harmonics in Jyotish are different. They're calculated differently. They're approached totally different. The significance given to them is very... And if harmonics in the Western astrology are not mainstream, that in Jyotish harmonics is an absolutely normal thing. For example, Navamsha Navamsha is the ninth harmonic. And it's some Vedic astrologers say it's as important as the natal chart, which we normally call Rashi chakra, but you will learn that. But Navamsha is almost as important or as important as the natal chart, although it's just the ninth harmonic. Some people say, well, everyone says it's the chart of your relationships, the chart which shows the person's relationships in the most significant way. And that's what we analyze when we want to understand the person's relationships, most importantly. But also people say that Navamsha is the chart of the person's soul, of what the person is doing in his travel through lives. It can hint what the person was doing in the previous life or something like that. But in this life, people say if there is a lot of harmony between Navamsha and the natal chart, then the person can achieve a lot, because that gives, outlets to his soul. And if we say that Navamsha is very easy and Rashi chakra is very difficult, they say that this is a very old soul which took a difficult task in this life just to learn a lot and many different things. Dasamsha, the 10th harmonic, is a very important chart to analyze career and profession, the matters of the 10th house. Again, we'll be learning how to do. We will have a homework to interpret all this. Here we come to the importance of the birth time, because what happens when we create a Navamsha or Dasamsha? Let's speak about Dasamsha. We take each of the signs of the zodiac and split it into 10 sections of equal length. There will be 3 degrees each. And with the planets, it's okay. The planets don't move that quickly. But say if your ascendant is just 2 degrees off, it can fall into a different section of the Dasamsha, and you will have a wrong ascendant, and the whole system of houses will be wrong, and it might not work. And again, this could be a blessing in disguise, because if you see that your Dasamsha doesn't work, just doesn't fit the facts of your life, you can understand, oh, maybe my birth time is not precise. We will have lessons on rectification in a later course, in a later module of these 4 courses. But already now you can start doing your first steps to interpretation with the help of Varga charts. If you see that there is something terribly wrong about your relationship, looking at the Navamsha chart, maybe your birth time is not that precise. Try moving it a little bit and see if you hit the nail on the head with a Navamsha. That was lesson 11. Lesson 12, methods of treatment. I think this is one of the most exciting and interesting things in Jyotish, because in the Western astrology, we can very often identify a problem. We can predict a problem quite often. But then what do? Should we tell the person, okay, something bad is coming, hide or run? And people say that, well, Vedic astrology is very, it says it will happen and it will happen. That's it. But the thing is, Vedic astrology has a rich, very well developed system of treatments or remedies. They say there is free will, yes, but not like in the West we say, there is free will, I don't care, whatever you predict, I have free will. Well, if you're ruled by your passions, you don't have any bloody free will. You just move along with your passions. In Jyotish, they say, you have free will, but you need to learn how to use it. Or you need to use friends, different remedies, which will help you to attune with your free will, which will help you to change the course of where you are going. And there are we will have a look at 10 different methods of treatment. One of the most interesting and the most often used is wearing precious and semi-precious stones. It's not like in the jeweler store where you come and they tell you, if you were born at this date, then this is your stone. If you're Aries, here is your stone. If you're Aquarius, here is your stone. It's totally not like that. In Jyotish, of course, we choose particular planets, and there is a whole very interesting process of choosing the right remedy as a stone. I can tell you very briefly. We take the 4 benefic planets, we find the weakest of them, and then we give support to that weakest benefic. This is one of the most reliable and fruitful approaches. Sometimes it's not straightforward which is the weakest, which you should better support, but we can figure it out together. Look, I'm wearing one of, this is the result of me doing the homework many years ago on this module. This is my precious stone, and it should be worn in such a way that it touches the skin. And this ring was specially created to assure that, and I really think it works very well for me. Although Roland, the creator of this course, has a different opinion about stones, and he's right. He's saying, for example, if a stone was taken from the earth in a mine which destroys local environment, or where the labor of kids is being used, then that stone is connected to bad karma, and you can have more harm from wearing this stone than good. But yeah, of course, you need to be sensible. You cannot pay off your karma with a credit card. You can buy the most expensive stone, but that might come with a bad karma. If you are modest, if you don't buy the stone which costs, I don't know, thousands of dollars, you might have success. I'm not telling that you are safe always with the stones, but you should be reasonable. And I think that they really work. Like I was discussing with Roland recently. I think now I should support my moon, I was telling him. And maybe I should something simple like moonstone, it doesn't matter how you wear it. It could be like a pendant touching your skin, something very simple. And he told me, I don't trust the stones. Why don't you just have a massage and relax a little bit? Yeah, I can. That would work. That would be called behavioral pattern. This is one of the things we are going to learn. Behavioral patterns and color therapy also. But look, with my lifestyle at this time, when I'm working 14, 15 hours a day, for how long will that relaxation work? For how long will that massage be effective? Not for very long. But my friends are always with me, and I really feel the difference how they support me. If you're wearing a stone, it's like your friend which is constantly with you. Well, that's my opinion. Okay, Roland has more experience, of course, but I will share with you what understanding I've got. Color therapy, for example. An interesting example. Most people in the West are wearing black, blue, dark stuff. And then they're surprised that they're so depressed. Because the dark colors typically belong to Saturn. Do we need more Saturn in our lives? I don't. I've got a very, very strong Saturn, the strongest planet in the chart. I don't need to support it. Some people say, well, I just like this color. Maybe it's good for me because I like it. That's a wrong conclusion. As you will be taught in this course, what people usually like, it's their strongest planet speaking. You don't need to support that planet. It's already very strong. For example, when I look at sapphire, I just like its color so much, but that's the color of Saturn. That's the stone of Saturn. I don't need more Saturn in my life. I need to support my weaker planets, and that's what we'll be learning in lesson 12. Right. Thank you very much for coming. And Ayurveda, I told you we'll learn a little bit. Well, you probably know a little bit, or maybe a lot, about Ayurveda. They have three doshas, three constitutions: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And usually in the Ayurveda books, they give you questionnaires, and you just read the questionnaire, and you answer the questions, and you sum up the results, and then you know what's your balance of doshas, what's the strongest dosha in your life. For example, if you are Vata, you are nervous, you are thin, and you feel cold very much, like that. If you're Kapha, if you're more like me, but all right. So it's an interesting topic, but what we'll show you in this course is the astrological approach to defining the balance of doshas. Like, where is the ascendant, where is the rule of the ascendant, like that, without seeing the person, without having the person to go through those questionnaires. And it can be more precise in some cases. How to correct the dosha balance, because according to Ayurveda, as far as I know it, not far, but the problems with health are usually the result of the strongest dosha going over the top. For example, if you're Vata and you eat dry food and you do Vata things, you behave like Vata, you keep doing everything like Vata, your Vata will go out from your control, and you will have health problems related to Vata. We will be speaking about this and how to correct doshas. One way is with the help of food, because each kind of food has its taste. Some foods are sour, others are sweet, pungent, and so on. And depending on what you want to do, knowing your dosha balance, you can take certain kinds of foods, which, for example, for Vata, it's very good to take sweet foods, like sweets, but also rice and potatoes are considered to be sweet foods. Well, we won't learn the whole Ayurveda in one lesson, but you will get the grasp of it. You will see how you could use it. And if you will be interested, you can go deeper. There are many other books. That's the beauty of this course. It gives you, it shows you the ropes. It shows you the ropes and of different most valuable things. But Jyotish itself is an ocean. You can't learn to navigate the ocean in a few months, but you'll know the ropes already. So the 14th lesson is the final assignment. You will take all the rules which you were studying, and you will apply them to your own horoscope. And again, the beauty of this course is that you don't need to think how I'm going to do this, because this will be a guided assignment. You will get the steps, do this, and go through the course step by step, learning and rehearsing what you've learned during these lessons. I would estimate that these courses should take several months to complete. If you do one lesson, well, the earlier lessons are quite easy, but the further you go, the more substantial are the lessons. And I think it's minimum 3 months to take this course, maybe more, depending. But you can take it at your own pace. It's up to you how quickly or how slowly you walk through the course. But I do recommend you to take your time. One caveat, one thing I should tell you: I'm not authorized to teach these courses to students in the UK. That's because there is a special teacher whose territory it is. Steve Hubble, he teaches in the UK and in Ireland, UK and Ireland. So if you live there, tell me, I will connect you to Steve Hubble, and he will teach. He's a very experienced teacher, and he's practicing Vedic astrology. I will just connect you with him, and he will teach you exactly the same course. Well, so the course is interesting, isn't it? But everyone is asking the same question, usually. What does it cost? Okay? So there are a few steps how I'm going to answer this. The standard price. The standard price for this course is $270 or 2 payments of $135. What I understand by the standard price. This is how the course is priced at the website of Dirach Academy and everywhere in the world where people teach this course. I think I've enriched this course quite substantially and going to further enrich it in a number of ways. As I mentioned to you, there are many forums associated with each lesson. There are and there will be additional materials and video tutorials, periodic webinars with recordings of them. And I will be available for one-to-one discussion if that's necessary. I already had a one-to-one discussion with one of the students of the introductory course, and so I think I've enriched and going to further enrich this course substantially. But I'm not going to raise the prices. The permanent price of the course will stay the same. At least for now, at least for the next year, I'm sure. But today is a very special day, isn't it? So I should offer you something different. Special price. It was supposed to be a 20% discount, but that would make the price something $214 or something, and I thought, oh, for God's sake, let's make it 200. It's a beautiful number. It's easy to remember, right? So 200 for 72 hours only for 72 hours. So today is the 26th. So until the end of the day on the 29th, I will keep this price for $200. And here is the URL. It's in the slide, but I will also give you a link in the chat box so you could click on it. And by the way, if you come to this webinar room later, for example, you'll forget where the course page is, you can always come to this page, and I think everything, including the chat box, will be still here. So this is the link to the page of the course. And also, since well, we're speaking about Jyotish today, I decided to take the introductory course, which I created earlier, and to put a special price tag on it again. So this is a Vedic Astrology primer for beginners, where I'm ready to take people with zero knowledge of astrology and to work with them until they understand their Vedic chart. And probably even in the northern and southern formats. Again, it was $50 before. For 72 hours, I give it away for $40. And let me give you the link, because this is a little bit more complex link. It should have a coupon code in it. So again, I will copy and paste it into the chat box. And later, maybe even later today, maybe tomorrow morning, I will take the recording of this webinar. I hope it will be recorded fine. And put it on YouTube so that everyone could watch it. You might want to watch it again, who knows. And I will make sure that these links will be under the video on YouTube. I will try to make that, to do that. So this is it. This is my presentation for today. Just a little bit more than 1 hour. Any questions, please? Why it's the thing is, if you're in Europe, I guess you're in Europe. That's why it's 242. The thing is, what happens if you are in Europe? You have to pay VAT. That's only Europe. Russians don't pay it. Americans don't pay it. When the payment system detects that you are coming from Europe, they're adding VAT immediately. That's a nasty thing. I don't like it. I'm paying it myself. And that amount of money doesn't go to me. It goes directly to the European Union. And that's one of the things which I think Brexit is a good thing. But only one aspect in which. But yeah, but the price, normally the price is $200. It just, a bolt on from the European Union, which they took put into their pockets. If you were an American, you wouldn't pay this. If you were from Australia, you wouldn't pay this. Well, if you're a European, that's because from this amount I will only get 200, and this is it. This is not my price. This is what Europeans have to pay for the fact that they're Europeans. That's how the payment system works. If the price was 270, you would pay $54 on top of that. That would be 325 or something. Yeah. But this is why some people want to leave Europe. I don't know whether that's a good. I hate the idea of Brexit, honestly, because that's 10 steps back in development. But for Canadians, yeah. Geraldine says that Canadians have a similar problem. I don't know. Okay. Right. So no questions. If no questions, we'll be closing down this webinar, and thank you very much for coming today. I hope those of you who will take the course we like it. We like it because I liked it when I was a student of it. I liked it very much when preparing it for you. I had discussions with Roland, the creator of the course, just to clarify certain things, to make sure I can deliver them in the most precise way. And about the further modules of this course, there are 3 more modules: advanced applied Vedic astrology and further methods and knowledge of Vedic astrology. Very interesting, very exciting. But of course, I won't start offering them until I have some students who will complete this module. And I think it will take a few months for them to complete it. Right. Okay. So if no questions, thank you very much, and see you next time, perhaps on one of my other webinars. Good luck.